Hey there, my name is Suman and welcome to Purple Pie Studios. So this is the lesson 11 of the Corporate Explainer animation course, and in this lesson we will learn how to animate this web UI inside the laptop screen all in After Effects. And if you have missed the previous lessons of this course, then you can check it out from the link provided in the description. And you can get all the files, assets, and illustrations that we are using throughout this course from our website that is linked in the description and also in the pinned comment section. Okay, so that being said, without any further delay, let's dive right into Adobe After Effects and let's get started with the project setup. So we will start from where we have left in the last lesson. So we're continuing from the After Effects practice file that you will get inside the AP folder in the open file if you have downloaded the open file from our website. And we are continuing from where we have left in the lesson 10. Okay, now here in the project panel, inside the frames folder, we will open frame number 3.2. So this both the frames are the same. 3.1 and 3.2 both are going to be the same composition. It's just that I have kept a copy of it just in case I need to copy some elements of the UI or some other illustrations. I can easily get back to this frame and copy it and paste it in the main frame and pre-comp it and do whatever we want. So we are actually going to do everything in this frame. So this is just a copy of frame 3.2. Okay, so the very first thing we have to do over here is, you see the UI cards over here. Now these illustrations are only going to be visible after we click this button, but before that we will continue from the UI that is there in frame number 2. So let's open frame number 2 and let's get inside the web UI inside the frame number 2. So this is going to be the initial UI of before clicking this button. Let's get inside card number 1. Let's copy this UI. So this entire thing is pre-comped. So we're just going to copy it and get back to frame 3.2. Then let's get inside web UI. Then L card 1. So basically the left side card 1, and just paste it over here. Of course, we have to reposition the entire thing so that it properly fits in. Same, let's copy it one more time from here and let's get inside L card 2, paste it over here again and just reposition to its location. And then we will select this layer and use the matte layer. So here we have a matte layer for the card. So we are just going to use this matte layer as an alpha matte. Same for the left card as well. Okay, so for the left card, things are not properly pre-comped. Maybe I have missed it or when I was doing the project setup. So let's do it right now. It's pretty simple. We just have to select all the secondary UIs that we have here in card number 1. Only this portion, not these buttons. We're just going to select all of it and then pre-comp it and name it LC UI1. And then we can create a rectangle shape for the mat. Just making sure the shape of the mat and the shape of the card edges are properly overlapping. So we will just select this UI layer and the card lines and use the matte layer as an alpha matte. That's it. Okay, now let's close all the extra opened pre-comps here in the timeline. And now let's move on with animating the cursor. Now again from frame number 3.2, get inside web UI and this is the cursor layer. So make sure the anchor point is somewhere at the tip of the cursor and we will start the animation of the cursor from like 1 second. I'm just leaving few frames at the start so that we can add some animation at the start. So let's give it like 2 seconds extra frames at the start of the animation of the cursor. So let's move the cursor over here and now we will animate a click. So open the scale property and add a keyframe, then jump on to next 5 frame, scale it down to about 65%, then keep 2 frames of pause, then jump on to next 7 frames, and now here we will scale it up to about 102, and then let's jump on to next 5 frames and let's get it back to 100%. So what we have done is we have added a little bit of overshoot. Let's easy is the keyframes and check out the click. Okay, for the click, what we can do is we can add some impact. For that, we can just remove the ease at this particular area and select these two keyframes and increase the ease on these two keyframes, so that we can add that snappy movement. This one looks even better. Okay, so from this frame, let's jump on to next 2 frames, open the position property and add a keyframe. So right now we will move the cursor from this button to this button and then add the click. So let's jump on to next around 30 frames and just move it over here. Then easy is the keyframes. Also, let's press U to open the properties with keyframe, and also we will make the motion path curved, not straight like this. I mean, generally it happens like this, but if we make the overall motion path curved, it actually looks better, and it would also help the audience to properly follow the cursor in the animation. So we will just bring the bezier handles by using the convert vertex tool. The shortcut key is press and hold the control key plus the alt key and click and drag. And let's select these two set of keyframes, go to the motion graph editor and hold the bezier handle at the start. And after that, we will add a keyframe on the rotation property. So somewhere around here, we will rotate the cursor like this. Somewhere around here, we will rotate it in the opposite direction like this, and then at the end we are just going to have a full 360-degree of rotation. That means a one complete cycle. Let's easy is the keyframe of the rotation property, and also let's select this in between keyframes and convert it into roving keyframe. So for that, press and hold the control key plus the alt key and double click on it. Let's check out the animation. Okay, now let's open the rotation property and add a keyframe at the start. After that, let's move the playhead at the end, and we are just going to give a one complete rotation. So now we will copy the motion graph from this two set of keyframes using is copy. Go to is copy, copy it, then select this two set of linear keyframes, then go to is copy again in the paste section, click on ease. And one more thing, I would like to make the curvature a bit bigger, somewhat like this. I mean, it should cover more area when it's moving from this button to this button. And in between, if you want, you can even add another keyframe like this to make the overall curve smooth. And also make sure the in-between keyframe is a roving keyframe. That means there is no acceleration or deacceleration here in this keyframe. So for that, just press and hold the control key plus the alt key in the keyboard and click on it 2 times, not double click on it, just click on it 2 times with a little bit pause in between 2 clicks. And also I think we can add some in between rotation keyframes to properly hover the cursor in that particular motion path so that it properly aligns with the motion path. And select this in between keyframes and convert it into roving keyframes again. And after the cursor reaches over here, we are also going to add another click, so we don't have to animate it one more time. Let's give 1 frame pause and we can simply copy and paste this set of keyframes from the scale property, and here we have another click. Okay, now we will move this cursor from this button to this section of the UI, and we will follow a curved path like this. So let's add a keyframe on the position property and a keyframe on the rotation property. And in this action, we will take some time. I mean, the motion should be a bit slow, not too fast. So we can give like around 2 seconds in between. Like this is 4 second. We are at 4 second. We can jump on to the 6th second, and let's select the cursor and move the cursor over here. One more thing, when you are adding a pause in the position property, you can see some weird thing is happening uh, here in the pause area. That happens when you are making the motion path curved. So the best way to solve this problem is just split it over here. So to split the layer, the shortcut key is Ctrl plus Shift plus D. Now we can select this cursor and just delete the position keyframes from here, and after this the animation of the cursor starts from here. So let's press U to open all the properties with keyframes, and let's continue our animation from this layer. So let's move the playhead at the end, and here is where the cursor should be, somewhere around here. And also let's delete this extra keyframes. Anyway, we don't need it because the layer is starting from here. And now we will make this motion path curved using what? Using the convert vertex tool. Again, the convert vertex tool, you can get it from here, but you don't have to navigate it directly from here. You can use the shortcut key Control plus the Alt key and just bring the cursor here at the position of the keyframe and just click and drag. A bezier handle like this will pop up, and you have to just move the bezier handle and try to make the curvature as smooth as possible. Of course, if you want, you can add some in between keyframes, but before that, make sure you fix the motion of the entire animation. So I'm just going to pull the bezier handle at the start and slightly at the end as well. And after that, here we will just move the cursor somewhere around here so that this is the arc the cursor should be following. So here we will just move the cursor somewhere around here. So this is what the path should follow, and I think here we can make the motion path even more smooth. I think it is looking good now. So now what we have to do is convert all these in between keyframes into roving keyframes. So for that, press and hold the Control key plus the Alt key in the keyboard and click 2 times on the keyframes simultaneously. After that, we will add some rotation keyframes. So first we will give one complete rotation. Let's give it 2, and maybe let's rotate the cursor slightly this side. After that, in between, we can add some keyframes for the rotation so that it is properly aligned with the motion path. And somewhere around here, I would like to rotate the cursor this side. Okay, so after this, let's select both these two set of keyframes of the rotation property and move on to the motion graph editor. Easy is it. First, let's pull the bezier handle from both the sides. After that, in between, we will add some rotation keyframes so that the cursor is properly aligned with the overall motion path. Okay, now let's select this keyframe and convert it into a roving keyframe. Now let's check out the animation. I think we can add some more ease at the end. So I will just pull the bezier handle at the end so that it gets slowed down. And also let's select this keyframes and move this keyframes by a few frames forward. Same with the rotation property keyframe. And now let's check out. So here I think we can rotate the cursor this side a little bit. Again, let's convert it into roving keyframe. Yeah, this one is looking better, so we can go with this one. Okay, now let's start with animating UI card 1. So after the first click, this first UI card, the button will change from white to yellow, and this button will move from here to here. And also the UI will be some changes in this portion of the UI. So let's get inside the so let's move the playhead at the point of the click with the cursor somewhere around here, and let's get inside the composition of this UI. So this is the card 1, the left side of the card 1, and let's get inside this. And now this is the card lines. So first, this is going to be visible. So first, let's animate this button. So let's select this button, open the position property, add a keyframe. Now let's jump on to next 8 frames and move it to the other side. That's it. Zoom into the timeline. Easy is the keyframes. Move on to the motion graph editor, and we will just pull the bezier handles from both the sides to get a snappy movement. Now select the button background, open the contents, open the groups, open the fill property, add a keyframe on color, and at the start we will change the color from yellow to white. Again, we will use the ease copy to copy the motion graph from this to set of keyframes to this set of keyframes. So select this keyframes, go to ease copy, copy the motion graph from this keyframes, then select this keyframes, then click on ease in the paste section. Now this is how it looks. Okay, so after the toggle button is on, this card lines will go outside this UI. So let's open the position property and add keyframes. Let's jump on to next 15 frames. Let's move it outside. Then easy is it. Let's jump onto the motion graph editor and pull the bezier handle at the start. And also let's select this UI. Also let's turn on the rasterize so that the layer guide is not the full screen of the UI, so that the layer guide of this composition is not covering the whole screen of the composition window. So we will also add a position property keyframe here and here, and we will bring this UI from outside the UI card from the opposite direction. And let's easy is the keyframe, then jump onto the motion graph editor, and we will pull the bezier handle for this side. Maybe we can slow down this whole movement a little bit, and let's offset these keyframes from the first UI. Also, let's select this composition layer and start the layer from this keyframe. So the shortcut key is Alt plus the open square bracket. Okay, now we will animate the elements inside this UI. So let's get inside the UI composition, and first we will start with animating the tick. So let's add a trim path property, and we will animate the end property of the tick mark. So add a keyframe on the end property, start with 0. Let's jump on to next 20 frames and give it 100%. Easy is the keyframe. Let's check out the animation. Okay, now we can even copy this trim path property and select these lines, paste it over here. Just simply Ctrl V to paste it, and open the tick mark as well. And when the tick mark is visible, we will also scale up this box. So open the scale property and add a keyframe, and also add a keyframe at the end. So at the start we will just scale it down and just start the layer from here. Easy is the keyframe. So now we have to offset the keyframes. So for that we have to go full screen mode for the layer panel. So double click here in the timeline. So first, this scale property, this box is going to be visible. So let's move backward by a few frames, and first the box is visible, then the check mark, and then the line 1 will be visible, then line 2, then line 3, and then line 4. Now let's get back to the normal mode. Again, double click here in the timeline. And one more thing, we will also change the motion graph editor. So jump onto the motion graph editor, and we will decrease the ease at the start and increase the ease at the end. Just pull the busy handles, and we will just copy and paste the motion graph from this set of keyframe to all this set of keyframes. So we will again get back to the normal mode and just go to ease copy, copy the motion graph, and then we will select all this set of keyframes, then click on ease in the paste section. Now let's check out the animation. So I will be animating the elements sequence by sequence. So first this side of the elements will be visible, then it's going to go from this direction to this direction. I mean, that is how the UI is also getting visible here in the UI card, right? So right now we will move the playhead by a few frames from here. Let's select this axis layer, and so here we cannot copy and paste the trim path from the earlier layers because we have to animate both the start and the end. So let's add a keyframe on the start and the end here in the trim path. Now let's jump on to next 24 frames and add keyframes. So at the start we will increase the start by 50%, at end we will decrease by 50%. So easy is the keyframes. Then again we will paste the motion graph. So the motion graph will be same for all the animation here in this frame. So we can paste the motion graph of the previous animation. And after that, when the graph is getting visible, I mean the axis is getting visible, we will also scale up this graph bar. So open the scale property, add keyframe. Let's jump on to next 20 frames, then again add keyframes. At the start we will just scale down the Y scale property. So this is how it's going to scale up. So let's give it 0 for all these layers. Select all these 3 bar layers, start the layer from here, select these keyframes, then go to ease copy, paste the motion graph. After that we will select bar 1. So we will start the bar 1 animation from here, then the bar 2 animation will start, and from here let's move the playhead by a few frames, and the bar 3 will start from here. Now this particular growth curve will animate. So for this growth curve we don't really need to reanimate the trim path of this particular property. So let's get back to the full screen mode once again, and we can simply copy and paste the trim path from one of the earlier layers where we have only animated the end property of the trim path. So simply copy it and select this layer and just paste it over here. And I would like to slow it down a little bit. And then we have to animate this triangle with the growth curve. So rather than just manually animating the path, we can follow a very simple technique. Open the group inside contents, open the path property, we will copy the path property. Now go to the arrow, open the position property and paste the position keyframes over here. Now I will only select the last keyframe because in between we have the roving keyframes. So if we move only the last keyframe, the in between keyframes are going to be adjusted automatically. Now what we will do is select this two set of keyframes, easy is it, and then just go to the motion graph editor and paste the motion graph. And we have to just reshift the position of this particular arrow layer. That's it. So let's place it over here. Now let's check out the animation. Alright, now we have to scale it up when the arrow is moving from here to here. So from here we will open the scale property, add a keyframe. Let's jump on to next 15 frames and add a keyframe. At the start we will scale it down to 0%. Then easy is the keyframe. Again, we can paste the motion graph from the is copy, and let's check out the animation. Yeah, this one is looking better. Okay, so at the end, we just are left with animating these three lines. So we don't have to animate these three lines again. We can just simply copy the trim path where we have only animated the end property. So copy this trim path, then again get back to the normal mode. Select these three layers and let's navigate it here in the timeline. So here are the three layers. Control plus V to paste it. Let's start the layer from here and press U to open the properties with keyframe, and we will just offset the layers by a few frames. Now let's check the animation from the web UI over here. Okay, now let's animate UI card too. So let's start the animation after the second click, so somewhere around here. Now let's get inside the card number 2 composition. First we will animate the button. Open the position property, add a keyframe. Jump on to next 8 frames. Then we will move the button on the opposite direction. Select the keyframes is it. Also let's zoom into the timeline. Now let's move on to the motion graph editor and pull the bezier handles from both the ends to add a snappy movement. After that, we will change the color of this button background. So open contents, inside group, we will open the fill, then add keyframe on the color property. So at the start, we will change from yellow to white. Now we will copy the motion graph from this set of keyframes using is copy and paste it here in the linear keyframes. After that, we will start animating the other elements of the UI. So after the toggle button is on, so somewhere around here, we can start animating the card UI elements. So open the position property and first let's animate this out of this UI. So let's open the position property and add a keyframe, and let's jump on to next 25 frames and just animate it out like this. And then just ease the keyframe, then move on to the motion graph editor and increase the ease at the start. And also I would like to animate this second UI position property, animating in. So let's add a keyframe over here, and at the start we will just move it outside. Again, is the keyframe, and we will just pull the bezier handles at the end. So we will add some hard ease at the end and just offset the keyframes. Let's check out the animation. Alright, so now we will animate the individual elements inside this UI. So we will start the animation from somewhere around here. Let's get inside the UI. Now we will animate the trim path property. Now we will add a trim path and animate the trim path for all these spy layers. So open the layer properties, go to add trim paths. Then we will animate the end property from 0 to 100%. So add a keyframe, let's jump on to next 25 frames, then animate it from 0 to 100%. Let's ease the keyframes, and after that move on to the motion graph editor and pull the bezier handles at the end. After that we can copy this trim path property and paste it at the point where this particular pie is covering this particular edge. So over here, Ctrl V to paste it. So now it is starting to animate from here to here, and after that from here we can start animating the yellow colored pie layer. So this is how it looks. Of course, the violet color or the blue colored pie layer will not be visible from this side. So what we will do is just select the last or the ending keyframes and move it or end the animation few frames before the end of pie 1. So we are just speeding up the animation. with this. Also, we can slow down the pi 1 animation. So after tweaking the overall timing of this animation, this is how it turns out. And now we just have to animate these abstract text lines. So for that we can get back to the UI1 and let's copy one of the trim paths from here where we have just animated the end property. And let's get back to the normal mode. Let's get to the UI2 and let's start the animation from somewhere around here. So let's move the layer start from here and Ctrl V to paste all the properties, to paste the trim path with the keyframes. So now let's double click on it to get back to the full screen mode in the timeline and just offset the layers. And this is how it turns out. Okay, now it's time to animate the card 3 of the web UI. So we will start the animation of the right side of the UI card from somewhere around here, where the cursor is starting to hover around this side of the UI. So let's get inside the web UI and place it at the center of this UI. We will parent all the UI elements excluding the card and parent it with this null object. Open the position property, then add a keyframe. Now let's jump on to next like 30 frames and move it outside like this. And of course we will select all these keyframes and use the layer below as an alpha matte and just turn on the visibility. So now easy is these keyframes on the null layer and pull the bezier handle at the start to add a little ease at the start. So now I think the overall animation looks a bit static. It would be nice if we could have added a little movement like some trim path movement for the strokes and some scale down movement for these buttons. So we can easily do that by going back to the previous frames and just copying the trim path property from the layer where we have just animated the end property. So let's copy it from here. Again, let's get back to the normal mode. Let's get to the right card one. Let's select these two line layers, paste it. Well, of course, it is for just making the lines visible. We have to just reverse the keyframes. Select the keyframes, go to keyframes assistant, then time reverse keyframes. Now, easy is the keyframes, and after that we will just pull the bezier handle at the start. That is it. After that we can even offset the keyframes to add some follow through in between. Now from here we can even select these three layers, open the scale property, add keyframes, and now let's jump on to next 25 frames and break the link between x and the y axis of the scale property and make the x axis 0. Now these are linear keyframes, convert it into easy keyframes, and just get back to the full screen mode. Go to the motion graph editor, just pull the bezier handle at the start. Now after that we can offset these keyframes to add a little follow through in between. Okay, now let's get back to the normal mode. Yeah, this one is looking even better. Okay, so once the UI elements are going out, the background UI card will expand. So let's get back to web UI and I will just lock the composition window and just double click on the right card one and open it in a separate UI. So we can dock it over here. So right now we can make any changes in this particular composition and we can see the changes real time in this composition as well. So what we will do is just open the shape path property of this particular shape layer, open the contents and add a keyframe on the path property. And let's jump on to next 30 frames and we will just spread out this card. Maybe we can make the animation a bit slower and easy is the keyframe, then pull the Bezier handle at the end. And also let's pull the Bezier handle at the start as well. So now let's check out the whole animation. Okay, I think at the end we have to move the null object a bit more further in the y-axis so that that last button is not visible. Okay, now let's get back to Web UI 1 and let's close all the unnecessary compositions over here. And we don't need two windows right now. So just close this one. So after the UI elements of this UI card of the right side is gone, this checklist will start appearing one by one and there will be a long scroll of around 5 seconds. So let's start the animation of these lines after it's almost completely disappeared. So somewhere around here. So let's select the checklist one and bring the layer start over here. First, we will open the position property, add a keyframe, open the scale property, add a keyframe, and open the opacity property and add a keyframe. Then jump on to next 25 frames. Press U to open the properties with keyframes and move the playhead at the start. We will bring it down, then scale it down to about 70% and bring down the opacity to 0%. Easy is the keyframe and move on to the motion graph editor and pull the Bezier handle at the end. So inside the composition, we have one check mark and 4 lines. So we can simply copy the animation that we have created for the other UI card layers. So let's get back to card 1 and then inside UI 1, let's get to the full screen mode of the layer. And then we can simply copy the trim path of the layer where we have only animated the end property. So Ctrl+C copy, get back to checklist 1 and let's get out of this full screen mode and we can select all these layers, move the layer start over here, Ctrl+V paste. And now we can just offset these layers. And we have even animated a check mark like this in one of the previous UI cards. So it was there in this cards. So here I have actually pre-comped the check mark and the stroke box together. So now we can simply copy this directly from this composition and paste it over here in this composition. Let's get inside the composition and let's check where the animation is starting, and we can just trim the layer from the start till this point. So the animation will start somewhere around here and we can offset the other layers based on that. And of course now we have to reposition the check mark. So first we have to move the anchor point and place it exactly at the center and reposition it over here and just scale it up to properly match the original size. Now we can simply delete this illustration layer and this is how it looks. So now from the web UI, we can simply duplicate this particular composition, and of course for the second one the color of the line is different. So for that we can go to the asset folder and look for checklist 1. Here it is. We're just going to rename it as 1.1 and let's duplicate it one more time and let's place it over here. Let's move the layer start at the start of this layer itself, and after that we will also reposition the layer, and inside we will just change the color of this line to orange. And now we can delete the composition that is below that. And for the third checklist, we can again duplicate this composition one more time and we're just going to reposition it. While repositioning a layer in which we already have position keyframes, you have to make sure that all the keyframes of that position property is selected, and then move it and place it anywhere you want, or else it's actually going to add a new keyframe on that particular frame. Okay, now we can even delete this checklist composition. And I think the checklist 2's position scale and the opacity property is not animated, so we have to reanimate it. So open the scale property, position property, and the opacity property and add keyframes. After that, move the playhead at the start. So first make sure the continuous rasterize is on, and then we can move the anchor point and place it exactly at the center. After that, we can open the position property, add a keyframe, open the scale property and add a keyframe, open the opacity property and add a keyframe. Press U to open the properties with keyframes. Okay, so and at the start we will just move it down by a few pixels, scale it down to about 70%, and opacity can be from 0 to 100%. Easy is the keyframes. Then move on to the motion graph editor and pull the bezier handle at the end. Okay, now we will just pre-comp all these three checklist compositions together and also use the layer below this card layer as an alpha matte and turn on the visibility. Inside this layer, we will just duplicate this layer multiple times and get a long list of this checklist. So press U to open the properties with keyframes, and after that we will simply select all these three layers together and Control D to duplicate it. Then again press U. We will just select these keyframes and reposition it and place it down. And we will repeat this process till we get a long list of layers, so that we can scroll these layers or add a scroll animation for at least 5 seconds. Okay, now that we have a long list of layers, so now let's get back to the web UI and first animate the scroll. So for that we can add a keyframe on the position property, and let's move on to next 5 seconds. That means from the 6th second to 11th second. And we will just move this layer in the y-axis. That is it. Easy is the keyframes. Move on to the motion graph editor and pull the bezier handle at the end. We will just offset the layers. So let's get back to the web UI. So we will offset the layers till we are animating the scroll. So somewhere around here. So we will offset the layers from the very first checklist to the last checklist. Okay, now let's get back to the normal view and let's check out the animation from the laptop screen. So that is the end of this video. In the next lesson, we will learn how to rig these hands, and in the lessons after, we will animate the hand. So stay tuned for that, and that is it. I will see you in the next one. Until then, goodbye.